Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone, and welcome to Moral Compass 101. It's my humble prayer that you have had a good week. Mine was okay. And in the very words of the psalmist, chapter number 91 and verses 5, I've neither been afraid of the night terror, nor the arrow that flies by the day. Last week, we dealt with the last part of the broader topic on change, where I profoundly explained the three types of change, namely the developmental change, the transitional change, and the transformational change. Today, we start a brand new topic, namely social capital. But before then, I'll kindly implore you to subscribe to Moral Compass 101 for knowledge acquisition, and comment for interactive objectives, and share and like to spread knowledge collectively. Having said that, the topic of the day is social capital, where social capital is a topic that has been profoundly discussed in breadth and in depth through the lapse of time, but as an adulthood subjective value that's contrived from different social interactions. Terming social capital solely as adulthood subjective value without acknowledging its objective childhood developmental benefits lobs its teleology. The teleology is the doctrine of purpose as a fundamental need during the formative years, and to a certain extent, its right to social intergenerational equity. So this means that if we only deal with social capital as a subjective need during adulthood, then we shall miss the mark or the big picture that the social capital starts or begins from childhood, where the way your parents parent you is very, very, very important in you forming your social relations or interpersonal relations when you become independent. While most people have heard phrases like your network is your net worth, you are the average of the 5 people you interact with, or if you look at the people in your circle and you don't get inspired, then you don't have a circle, but you have a cage and the like, these and many more are just but subjective philosophical concepts that don't refer us to where the rubber started missing the load, or in simplicity to the inception point of social capital. Yeah, all these phrases, are viable, or they are reasonable, but they are just but philosophical, subjective philosophical concepts. They don't lead us to the need of social capital as an objective benefit during childhood. And with that fact, I came up with a definition of social capital, which captures the fundamental necessity and social capital as a transitional value from childhood to adulthood for a viable social and transformative intergenerational equity. So, what is my definition of social capital? Social capital is an objective resource, a subjective benefit, and a value that's derived from different social structures, from your robust parental board, your serendipity occurrences, your unplanned encounters, plus your subjective, volitional, and intentional networks that instigate viable interpersonal rapports. You know, that all these aspects of social capital, from your childhood, how you interacted or how your parents interacted with you, to your years of uh, freedom, where you have to make a choice of who you bring into your circle, are important as far as social capital, viable social capital, is concerned. Two words to grab from my definition is volitional. Volitional is the power or the ability to will, the power to make a decision, and intentional is the objective or the purpose, the aim or the purpose for that decision that you have already made. So this is a matter of power versus purpose. As a child, you were objectively under the care of your parents or guardians, where they inculcated values and also exposed you to different social structures like church, school, and the like. While the conceptualization of social capital can be depicted as early as infancy, where a child refuses to be held by a stranger, the articulation of complex ideas of social capital are later formed through different social structures, and recreational facilities where a person subjectively decides who to trust and to relate with. Therefore, contrary to a vast majority of people who believe that social capital is only a subjective need that necessitates a viable interpersonal relationship during young adulthood and following, social capital is likewise an objective need and a fundamental resource that fosters a rapport between a parent and a child and a strong bond within the entire family unit. In other words, while social capital will become a subjective need after leaving or outgrowing your parents' care, it has always been an objective need that facilitated good parenting and a robust rapport between you and your parents without your consciousness. That while you may think that you need to establish a social capital because now you are independent, you are out of your parents' care, if this social capital was not introduced to you during your early childhood developmental years, you don't have something you can relate to in order to formulate viable and successful social networks. This fact makes social capital a double agent that holds dual responsibilities. The first responsibility of social capital, an objective resource during your formative years and later during years of parental dependency. The second, a subjective value when you outgrew parental dependency. So these are the two double sides of or responsibilities of social capital: an objective resource and a subjective value. It's indisputable thus to say individuals largely tend to adopt their objective parental social capital, where they form their own social capital subjectively. That's why young adults who have had a good high-level parental social capital tend to establish a suitable and viable social capital for themselves. This occurrence is called the intergenerational social capital transfer that facilitates an intergenerational social capital equity. So, what is social capital equity? Social capital equity is the concept that ensures that a parental social capital influences a child's opportunity, opportunities through the formative of viable, substantive, and constitutive interpersonal networks. That, uh, what good values, morals that were inculcated by your parents, you know, they make it a deposit, an equity that will help you to formulate viable and substantive and constitutive interpersonal relationship in your later years. While social capital is not intrinsic and hence not genetically inherent, children learn how to build and maintain viable social networks by observing and emulating their parents' behavior and social interactions. This occurrence helps greatly in shaping their perception on their own sociability. A viable and positive relationship between a child and the parent, which depicts a strong social capital, helps to develop a robust socio-emotional skills which are critical for future social networking success. So the question is, are your social networks between you and your child something that you would like them to emulate in their later years? On the other hand, a poor parental social capital can lead to a poor young adult social capital. In other words, while a deficiency in objective social capital from the parent can instigate a weak subjective social capital for a young adult and following, a parent have both objective and subjective responsibility to establish a robust social capital for his or her children. So, objective in the sense that providing life necessities, enrolling your children in school, facilitating social opportunities like recreational activities and spiritual facilities like churches, all those ones are objective responsibility of formulating a rapport or a good social capital to your children. Subjective in the sense that teaching and modeling values through instilling morals and ethics, nurturing positive relations or relationships and emotional support, promoting effective communication and social skills. That is the subjective responsibility as a parent that you are supposed to inculcate to your children for their future strong and effective social capital. My closing statement is in form of a question. How strong and viable is your social capital? And if you are a parent, are you helping your children to establish a robust and an effective social capital through your substantive and constitutive social networks? That is a personal question, intriguing question that each one of us needs to ask himself or herself. Until next time, please stay safe. Blessings and shalom.